Hey guys, this is Solution Podfic, and today we're going to be reading I Didn't Ask, Did I? By Anita Supervision. This is Chapter 8. Why are we lingering around here? Clint stands before his colleague, his hands on his hips, glancing curiously at the people gathered in the hallway. We watch Tony talk on the phone. The archer peeks at where Sam is pointing, and his eyes fall on Tony, who is wildly just gesticulating. The glass separating them from the conference room had to be isolated well, because the man behind looked like he did not hold back on his decibels. Fury? Fury, Steve confirmed with a sigh. How long has this been going on? 17 minutes, Natasha replied dryly. Narrowing his eyes, Clint watched as the billionaire stomps across the room, throwing his hands in the air, face scrunched into a scowl. It's about Spiderman again? He asks, reading the name on Tony's lips, followed by more words that Steve shouldn't be hearing. A glance at the blonde's puckered brow told Clint the man had heard them either way. When are their conversations not about Spider-Man? Throws Sam in. At this point, it feels like Tony's obsession with the teenager who supposedly smeared the tower exists for him to use as a distraction from Fury and his constant questioning about the spider guy. All eyes turn to Sam, the latter looking around as he feels them staring at him. What? I thought that was quite logical. It does sound logical. We didn't expect you to come up with such a sound conclusion. Clint easily dodges the hand aimed at the back of his head. Sam scoffs. Who are you, Bucky 2.0? Don't look at me like that, Steve. I didn't insult anyone. Steve had already opened his mouth when the door to the conference room burst open. Is it time for the daily gossip again? Oh, hey, Tony. Didn't know you're here, too. Tony gives Clint a look that tells him what went through his mind without having to say a single word. You say that after watching me through a window for minutes? The spy stepped back, hands raised guiltily, but the smile betrayed him. Caught. Tony rolls his eyes. Just keep poking fun at me. If Fury starts constantly breathing down your neck and placing unjustified expectations on you, don't come crying to me like your high school crush broke up with you. He turns away from the group. Friday, lab lockdown. I don't want to hear from anyone today unless it's an emergency. You know what? Scratch that. Emergencies go to Cap. Of course, sir. The others watch their colleague walk straight towards the elevator. What are we betting that he doesn't look for Spider-Man and continues looking for Parker? Sam glances at Clint. How do you know the boy's last name? The archer shrugs his shoulders innocently. I wanted to know what was so special about the team that made Tony make such a fuss over him. Steve sighs deeply. I hope you're not spying on him too. It's enough if Tony doesn't know when to stop. Calm down, Steve. I know how to behave. Steve didn't look convinced. Great. Now that he's locking himself in his workshop and not letting anyone in, I'd better ask Bruce if he knows how to clean my wings of this weird plant slime. While the rest of the team discusses the last mission, Tony arrives at his workshop. Friday, place an order with Subway and tell them to have Parker deliver it. Sir, Miss Potts forbid you from ordering any food on the premise of harassing Mr. Parker. Tony sputters, turning to one of Friday's cameras and pointing at it with narrowed eyes. Excuse me? Me harassing anyone? The kid insulted me multiple times and made my property look like a kindergarten's art project, who was left unsupervised with caffeine and a load of black paint. Miss Potts says you are the adult in this situation and should act accordingly. Okay, first of all, I don't want to hear one more word of what Miss Potts said. And secondly, I don't care who says what. Friday, send the order. Mr. Parker doesn't work at Subway anymore, sir. Should I proceed with the order? Tony looks up from his table. No, cancel that. Don't tell me he got fired again. Mr. Parker's contract had not been terminated by this company. That catches the genius's attention. Would you look at that? He quit himself? The letter of resignation had been submitted by May Parker. Tony crosses his arms over his chest, a smirk on his face. Sooner or later, Parker got caught. That seems to be the case. For once, you didn't seem to have anything to do with it, sir. The man lifts an eyebrow. Please, how is it my fault the kid gets fired all the time? Sir, do I need to remind you that Mr. Parker was terminated from his previous part-time jobs after you placed an order there or interacted with him? There is a 94% chance that you're responsible for him getting fired. Tony taps the end of a screwdriver thoughtfully against his chin. If he hadn't been so annoyed by Fury, he would have almost felt guilty. Frowning, the man turns around, leaning his head against the table. Several people had told Tony to drop the matter, but he wasn't Tony Stark if he stopped doing something just because someone said so. A small part of him knew that he was overdoing it, and if Fury would leave him alone for like 5 minutes, he would probably step back and think more rationally. Probably. But Fury does not give him a break. Tony's stressed, and there's this teeny tiny detail that throws him off about his and the kids' encounters, which makes the leaving the subject rather difficult. It was the first meeting with Peter Parker that Tony couldn't get out of his head. It plays again and again behind his inner eye. Over and over again, the boy who mutters that one sentence to himself doesn't leave the man in peace. Serves you right, asshole. But what exactly would serve him right? That he had been in pain? That he had got hurt? He is well aware of the countless people who can't stand him, and probably even more who would love to see him disappear. But why would Parker be one of them? The whole thing didn't make any sense. Parker's credentials and academic achievement spoke for the boy. On paper, Peter Parker was a picture-perfect student. He is helpful, hardworking, and above all, worryingly intelligent. So why was he so incredibly hostile towards Tony? Nerds like Peter should love him, and according to the out-of-school activities the boy frequented, he is one. So even if Captain America, or worse, Hawkeye, were his favorite Avenger, given his educational background and other interests, he would have at least had to jump for joy or stammer as the hero worship overcomes him at the sight of Tony. Instead, he insulted him with the coldest look Tony has received from anyone in a long time, and that's saying something. There was something that he's missing. Tony stares at his desk with a frown, his chin resting on his intertwined fingers. The scenario runs through his head again. He and Happy entering the diner. He places his order. Parker tells him to wait. Tony rubs his shoulder. Serves you right, asshole. Parker had only glanced up at him as he muttered those words under his breath. Tony wasn't sure if the boy had even intended for him to hear it, but judging by his reaction, he didn't care. Friday, put all the information we gathered about Parker on the table. The whole row of holoscreens pops up in front of the man, who takes a step back and looks at the entire wall of information with his arms crossed over his chest. Had he abandoned the boy? Had he met him at a convention and didn't give him an autograph? Was his school denied a field trip to Stark Industries? Is there a time when Parker and I were in the same place? It cannot be ruled out that you and Mr. Parker were in the same place, but the probability is less than 12.45%. The whole thing was making him crazy. The longer the man looked into the topic, the more questions arose. And he hadn't even begun to theorize how on earth Parker managed to paint this tower. Tony tiredly rubs a hand over his face. There has to be something, a common denominator. Parker quit all his jobs? His aunt quit all jobs within the last 4 hours. He also works in an animal shelter, but the work counts as voluntary and is unpaid. With a frown, Tony watches as Dummy makes coffee in the kitchenette. An animal shelter. How long has the kid been working there, Friday? Since August 21st, sir. That's not that long. A few days before he met the kid at Bill's. His fingers fly over the holographic keys, and after a few seconds, the image of an inconspicuous building surrounded by a 3-foot-high metal fence floats in front of him. Forest Hills Adoption Center is written in capital letters above the entrance. Tony's index finger taps tirelessly on the tabletop as he scans the shelter's website. When did Parker start his other part-time jobs? 21st of August, sir. What a weird coincidence, murmurs the man, pushing the steaming cup away from him, which Dummy has placed on the table next to him. He is close to something. He can feel it. That also means he can't afford food poisoning right now. Friday, tell Clint to get his ass over here. He owes me a favor. The man enlarges the website of the shelter, his brows furrowed. You asked for me? Clint stands against the door, eyes checking the holograms before landing on Tony. The man stands up, hands shoved in his pockets, before closing the windows between them with a flick of his wrist. He steps closer, drawing the arch in by throwing an arm around his neck, causing the other man's face to contort in confusion. Dark brown eyes gleam with something Clint cannot pinpoint, but he knows that it cannot mean anything good. Turning towards the door, Tony pushes his colleague forward. Say, Legolas, when was the last time you got checked for allergies? Alright guys, and that was the end of Chapter 8 of I Didn't Ask to Die by In Need of Supervision. Hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you in this chapter.